everybody. I hope you guys are having a really good Saturday morning. This is now the 8th Chats with Fire, so I'm super stoked to have you guys on again. Today I have on my friend Rachel. She is originally also from Alaska, currently moved to Washington doing dispatch. Permanent, you said permanent, full-time, year-round, right? Yeah. Yeah, so we'll just get straight to it. I'll let you go ahead and if you want to introduce yourself, tell us what you do.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Rachel Calderwood. I've been a wildland fire dispatcher for 9 seasons now. So long in my brain, but probably short compared to many others. I do have a toddler who is obsessed with me going somewhere with her. No, come here, honey. Come say hi. This is motherhood at its finest, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been a wildland fire dispatcher basically for about 8 seasons, and before that I was in tourism, and I needed a change in my life, and so I found this kind of a little bit randomly, and yeah, I was in Alaska for most of my career so far, and I moved down here to Washington a year ago to take over a dispatch center down here, a little guy. And yeah, that's basically my career in a very tiny nutshell.
I love it. Did you start searching for other positions out of Alaska, or did that kind of just fall into your plate?
I did a little bit. I knew I was kind of ready to leave Alaska, just the weather, the dark, a lot of the hours, especially after I became a mom. Before being a mom, it was easy to work 16 hours, 21 days straight with no regard to any sort of personal life. Mm-hmm. And that's Alaska fire season. And so I kind of started to a little bit look around to see, where I could go be a dispatcher that maybe wasn't as busy and had year-round work. And so it was a process. I looked for about a year, kind of casually applied to places, wasn't too serious about it. And then these positions in Washington opened up, and I asked my boyfriend, my partner, and I was like, hey, what do you think about moving? And he was like, yes, please. He was very done with Alaska. So
okay.
I applied, and I interviewed, and within 24 hours, they offered me the position. And about a month later, I was flying down here to start in a town I had never been in for an agency I hadn't worked for. I had been on assignment to Washington, but mostly in Fed interagency dispatches, not in strictly state tier 4. So
you're stateside then?
Yeah.
In Washington?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still state. I was with Alaska DNR, and now I'm with Washington DNR. So
cool.
I've always been a state person, never worked for the feds before.
Yeah. Cool. Something that I was getting ready to ask, and it totally just went out the window. So are you guys, I know it's probably a weird question. It's like, yeah, this is it. We're going to stay here in Washington. Is it like the place?
I think so. I definitely want to give it a while. It was a hard transition coming down. Neither me or my partner have any family, or my closest friend is probably about 200 miles away. And so we didn't know anyone. We just kind of found an apartment that we rented blind. But it's so far so good. I want to give it really a full chance. It's my first time really moving out of Alaska. So
that's understandable for sure.
Yeah.
We were So for those of you watching, Rachel and I were just talking about like making that shift, moving out of Alaska. It's it's a place that so many people are like, oh, this is beautiful. I'd love to live there. But then when they consider like cost of living or, winter that lasts for 8 months, 7 months, like it's a different lifestyle. So weird for us locals to make the transition out of that sometimes.
Exactly. I'm going to go hit play on Blue's Clues real quick.
Okay. All right, no worries. So for those of you guys that are on, where are you guys all at right now? Where's everybody tuning in from? Got a couple names that I recognize. Let's see, James. Utah. All right, that's cool. I was in Utah last year. I'd asked like where everybody was tuning from. So.
Oh yeah. I've never been to Utah on assignment. It's one place I really want to go.
Oh, Sam and Idaho?
I've been to Idaho. I've been to Arkansas. Arkansas is an awesome place to go on assignment if anyone has that chance.
That's where we would actually like to move eventually. Be nice.
That's one thing I love about this career is I've gotten to go places that I probably never would have gone on my own. Like I never would have sought out Arkansas to travel to for fun. But I got the opportunity to do an assignment there in the winter of 2016. And I was there for almost 2 months.
Okay.
And it was awesome. It was an awesome place.
So earlier you were telling me a little bit about like kind of the retention issues or the hiring issues with dispatch in particular, like not just fire specific, but do you want to talk about that a little bit and we can fire back and forth?
Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of hiring a couple seasonals right now, hopefully. And I find myself explaining to people who don't know anything about wildland fire or even that dispatch is a thing that exists. And I find myself the first thing I talk about is the fact that you're probably going to give up your summers and not have a social life. And I think that the hours really affect people. It's a hard kind of lifestyle to get into. And so that can be a retention issue. And I mean, for me, when I found out I was pregnant, there was a lot of serious thoughts in my brain, like, can I be a parent and do wildland fire? The answer is still unknown. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. And so a lot of people, it's great when they're young and maybe they're in college and they are fine with having winters off. But then you start getting older, maybe have a family, have year-round bills.
Did I lose you?
Oh no, did I lose you?
Oh, I think we're good. All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, let's see, somebody said, yes, you can. It's hard, but it's doable. You're doing it now. Yeah, I mean, and I love the fact, too, that you just said, like, basically it's to be determined, because I feel like there are people who just say, like, yes, this is what I am, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm always going to do, but it's like, your life ebbs and flows, and I think, like, regardless what your path, like where your path is going to lead, like, you'll always have that as, like, yeah, I've done that, or I am doing it, but it's like, you have to be flexible.
And I definitely, like, I feel lucky, like, when I found out I was pregnant, it was not a planned one, but definitely wanted. And I immediately was like reaching out to other people, other ladies I knew who were in fire, especially the ones I knew who were kind of more single mamas, and just being like, how am I going to do this? And I think that's the big thing I love about fire is the community rallied around me. My like closest friends outside of fire were huge support, and like if I didn't have that, like I would not be a dispatcher right now. I would have had to have left.
Yeah.
Because that first season when she was a newborn was difficult. It was a busy fire season in Alaska, and I was lucky if I made it home in time to put her to like see her go to bed.
Oh my goodness.
So that was a big reason for kind of moving somewhere with a little slower fire season in hopes of, I was like, all right, where is it rainy, but there's still a dispatch center.
Cut it down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I know my friend Danny came on, I think she was like the third guest that I had on for Chats with Fire. And she was speaking about motherhood and working in fire, and she's been in it for quite a while at this point. And one of her underlying themes is, you know, if you're going to be in fire, whatever position, and be a parent, like it takes a village. And you kind of have to lean into people, be it, you know, your fire family or your personal family or your friends. And you know, I don't have children yet at this point, but I assume like when we get to that point, we have kids, if we're still both in fire, we're going to have to like reach out and be like, hey, like we need help. And then also be willing to help other people when they're in that position as well. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think like one of the most valuable things I had was like my best friend who's not in fire, and being able to call her and just like vent and have that support. But yeah, it is really nice that, and I think maybe it's easier in dispatch. I don't know. I've only ever done dispatch, so I can't compare what it's like to be a boots on the ground in a mama. But I've seen some amazing women do it, and they're rocking it. And it's not easy.
Yeah.
And especially like with COVID hitting and just like that whole added level to everything of,
yeah,
I was lucky enough I was able to take my daughter into the dispatch center if it was slow enough and have her there for a little bit. But
yeah. I think from a couple people that I've spoken with who, you know, like have little bitty kids or like a newborn or whatnot, that ability to take their newborn in when they're working in dispatch, like you said, as long as it's like slower or there's not a lot going on, I mean that's kind of a not unheard of, but like that's a very special thing. Like that's a big deal for people to be able to do that versus, I would assume, being out on the line, like you can't just bring your baby to a fire, you know? That's not going to happen. So,
stick them in your line bag and call it good.
Right. Like, I mean, I got an extra couple pounds in my bag. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, I know there's somebody that my fiance used to work with. I think she was like patrol or maybe in fuels or something, but after she got pregnant, she, you know, worked a while still on the line during her pregnancy, but at some point she was just like, I think I'm ready for dispatch. Like, you know, I'm gonna take a little bit and do the mom thing. And I think that's a really cool ability to be able to do that.
Yeah. If I could give any advice, I would say time your pregnancy. I was in my third trimester during like peak Alaska fire season, and it was hot and like waddling around an unair conditioned dispatch center, trying like working ungodly hours.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
Be pregnant in the winter.
We've had that conversation, and I know other people too, that they're like, Yeah, we planned it specifically, like these months are when we can get pregnant. And outside of that, like, don't touch me, don't even look at me.
Yeah, I got induced and I got induced at the end of August. Like I remember stopping by the dispatch center on my way to the hospital and just to like check in, like, oh hey, everything going good? I'm getting ready to head to the hospital. You guys need anything?
That's funny.
Like almost thinking like, oh, should I take a handheld and maybe my laptop to the hospital? It'll take a couple days.
Dedication.
It was just like, thankfully my dispatchers were like, no, what are you like? Why are you here? Go away.
Yeah. Oh, oh my gosh. It's hard though, I think, when you're that invested to take time where you're like, okay, I'm not going to think about my job. I'm going to think about my stuff, but I really do need to be thinking about my job. Like it's crazy difficult.
Oh yeah. I definitely it's gotten better in the sense like I feel like I've found myself more now that I'm a mom because I definitely like I love my career. I love it. Sometimes I hate the job, but the whole career of wildland fire, like I love it and I don't honestly see myself doing anything else.
Hmm.
But I before I got pregnant, I think it was sucking me in and it was kind of becoming my whole personality. It was like all I did, it was all I talked about, it everything.
Hmm.
And this kind of in a way forced me to realize like, all right, you can have a life outside of fire and you should. Otherwise,
Hmm.
you just get sucked in and I've seen people get injured and then they kind of or they retire and that's all they ever did and they almost like lose themselves.
Hmm.
And so it's I try to tell my dispatchers that all the time is, don't go have a baby to find yourself, but make sure you have hobbies outside of your career because otherwise it can become a whole thing.
Yeah. I I can I can very much relate to that just with, dispatching. My fiance's in fire full time. I have this business now that I've built around fire and I love it. I love all aspects of that. It's great. Um, but I've also kind of had to slow down a little bit and be like, okay, this is work. This is the job. What am I doing outside of that to like nurture myself and like you said, like kind of find myself again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for so many people, fire does become all consuming because it's like, yeah, we love it, we're proud of it, and it's really cool, and like we like to share about it. But then, what else do you have that makes you you? Like, what's yours outside of that?
I remember when I was still seasonal, like before Sitka, um, that transition period of like the end of the season where you get laid off. And then all of a sudden it's like you went from having this core group of humans that you spent all this time with and obviously you're going to talk about deeper things at work and they're your sounding board to all of a sudden like nothing. Now you don't have that group of people and people have like a lot of boots on the ground I've talked to, like they hate that transition period because they don't know what to do with themselves. Now what do I get up in the morning for?
Yeah, yeah.
And
I've
then
had a lot of people. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, and then it's like the end of the winter season, then all of a sudden you're ready for that next transition of going back to work where you're dirt poor because you spent all your money.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah. I've had quite a few people reach out and they're like, "Man, this season, like that off season thing is really hitting me," and it's crazy how I don't know, like just how much it affects our lives. And even like for myself, like my fire season last year was pretty weird. Um, just like the timing of it and whatnot. But like even coming out of that, especially like November, December, it was not fun. Like it was very, very strange. And I think, going back to like retention or people coming on, I think if people are not used to that, that can be a very, very strange and difficult situation where people are like, yeah, I'm not really about this, and that's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely a different lifestyle.
Yeah, I try to go to as many like recruiting events as I can.
Hmm.
Um, I haven't had a chance to go to too many since I've moved down here, but I like to tell people like there is something in fire for everyone. Um, I mean, when I started, I was dating a guy who was in fire, so that's kind of how I found out about it.
Yeah.
But people I've talked to, like you tell them wildland fire, they're like, "Oh, the smoke jumpers and the hot shots, the guys in the yellow shirts." I was like, "Well, there's all these other things that you can do."
Hmm.
And yeah, there really is something for everyone in fire. But it's that, again, that kind of lifestyle. Like, hey, do you hate summer and not want to do anything social for 6 months a year? And then not have any paychecks for the other 6 months of the year? This is a great career.
Yeah, I can imagine too that would be, I hate to say difficult, but maybe a challenge, like doing recruiting events just for that fact. I mean, how do you sell someone when that's what you're telling them?
Yeah, I definitely have been trying to go to like angle recruiting events to like maybe universities or colleges or even like high school students, like people who are about to turn 18. Like,
Mhm.
hey, if you're going to college, do you want to pay for college by working your butt off all summer? And maybe it'll turn into a career if you decide you like it.
Mhm.
I I am impressed. Like I feel like I've seen more and more agencies try to create more year-round positions. And I think they're
Yes.
seeing that. I mean, you're always going to have the people who want to work seasonal. I mean,
Mhm.
I miss it. I miss working and then traveling all winter. I don't miss
Yeah.
being poor at the end of winter, but
Fair enough. Yeah.
so I think the agencies have recognized that. It's a slow process, but hopefully we'll get there. Just hopefully we won't lose everyone we currently have. And,
Right. Well, and like with my fiance, he was applying for positions in the like the fall winter hiring, and it's interesting. Like he's permanent now, so he's looking for a permanent position. Um, and it's kind of interesting. Like the seasonal jobs seem to be very specific to certain areas, and I'm assuming that that's based off of like the fire activity.
mm,
Um, but even some of the hiring folks that talked with my fiance, they were like, "Oh, it is seasonal, but like we're trying to push for it to be a full, like year-round permanent position." And just hearing that, that is kind of interesting that they're really trying to shift away to, yeah, let's have everybody permanent year-round.
I mean, I think we're seeing fire season practically year round now. I mean, people are going on assignments into December, various places,
Hmm.
and you're seeing more project work being done. So there's opportunities for year round work.
Hmm.
And I think too, like when I try to do like recruiting or retention, trying to explain to people like the training and the task books,
Hmm.
because for me, that's another thing that I love about this career is that there's always something to learn. There's always a next step up from, you start at this bottom qualification, then you can take classes, work your way up, train. And that's interesting to me.
Hmm.
And I think it's interesting to a lot of people, especially people who enjoy learning and constantly working on themselves because you can. I mean, you got to really work to peak out in fire, I think.
Hmm. And like you said, there's so many different positions available, like dispatch. Okay, you get your EDRC, I don't even know if are they still starting with, I know some people are telling me like, oh yeah, it used to be like you had to do RADO before you could get into dispatch and whatnot. I don't know if that's still a thing, but you work through those calls, and then to me, I feel like there's still always more that you can learn in dispatching. But
Mm-hmm.
at that point, once you kind of max out on your quals, it's like, okay, well, Gosh, I've done dispatch. Like, what else can I get into? Logistics or planning kind of stuff. Like, there's so many things that I personally think that's appealing because we don't stop learning.
Exactly. Any dispatcher I've ever worked with or that's been on my team or anything, I've encouraged at some point, like, yeah, work on dispatch. Hang on, baby. Yeah, Blue's Clues. And like, but at some point, get a qualification that's outside of dispatch. I try, I tried doing PIO. It wasn't quite for me to be a public information officer. It wasn't. I don't know. That it didn't feel for me. I give mad respect to the people who do PIO because that is a very hard position.
Yeah.
I do. I'm working on my human resources position, and so that one's kind of a fun, obscure one that no one wants to do. So don't have a whole lot of competition for that one. I like to call that one my retirement qual. When I do finally retire, I can just take assignments as a human resources specialist.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny you said PIO because that's something that I've kind of considered like, oh, maybe I should get into that. But I think even for myself, having been in fire for, however many, a handful of seasons, it's kind of like, well, how the heck do you get into that? And I think with some of the other positions, like you said, like you don't necessarily know those are out there. So how do you even know where to start? How do you know other than being like, hey, I think I want to do this. Somebody please help me. Where do I go? Like, to put it on blast.
Yeah, I feel like I see more and more on Facebook and social media. And maybe it's because I'm already in the field and it's places I follow. But yeah, it is. I know like PIO specifically, they do classes through like a lot of universities. But again, if they're not advertising it, it's almost like you have to know someone and be connected that way. And I don't have a good answer for how to get it out, but hopefully there's just more. I think with fire being more and more in the news lately, that's helped people get interested. Mm-hmm. So she's full energy mode right now.
It's Saturday, of course.
Yeah, it's the off season, so it's a little rainy right now, so it's not like ideal go outside weather. So that trapped inside. I mean, it's not Alaska 40 below, so that's good.
Oh my gosh. She can still go outside and be okay.
Yeah. You can open the door and shove her on the porch if needed.
There you go. Oh my gosh. Oh. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I would say for people like trying to get into dispatch or just fire in general, like networking is a huge thing. I mean, that's how I've gotten out to other places too. Like, you never know who you're going to meet, where you're going to go.
Yeah, I've met some of like awesome people when I go on assignment. I think networking is just huge to get out there and get people known.
Yeah, well, and I know too, like on Facebook, there's the wildland fire dispatcher page, and that's been cool. Even just to see, like, just hopping on and being like, okay, where are people going? Like, who's popping up fires? Who needs people? And I don't know if they have that for other positions in fire.
I feel like I've seen one for PIO, maybe logistics. But again, it's like you have to know what to look for.
Right.
And if people don't know, I've been trying to join as many because I've been recruiting for my seasonal positions here. I've joined like all the local Facebook pages here and just plastered my job positions and my cell phone number. Like, call me if you have any questions on this weird job that you've probably never heard of.
Yeah, I
And
think that's a great way to get the news out. I mean,
mm,
not everybody, but almost everybody's on social media at this point.
yeah. And I always try to sell it's like you could travel, like we'll pay to train you, we'll pay to send you random places. You want hours? I can give you hours.
Yeah, yeah.
I just need to know that you can use a computer and learn
Mhm.
and multitask. That's all I need.
That's a big one. I think that was one of my, like, it was kind of a skill that I had going into dispatch, but it was something that I kind of had to learn, like, as I went along, like, to be able to tune out, like, okay, those people over there are just talking, like, I don't need to pay attention to them, but my phone is ringing, taking down notes, logging, who's going where, like, there's so many different things in dispatch that you have to be aware of, and, like, simultaneously turning this off, turning this on, and it's interesting seeing people come into dispatch who aren't used to it, and then
Mm,
watching those people finally step back and be like, dude, now I understand what you guys do. This is crazy. Like,
yeah.
yeah, a lot.
Weirdly, I'd say dispatch has in some ways made me a better mother. Like it's
Mm.
I've gotten better at multitasking and also remaining calm. Like she was really colicky the first 6 months, so screaming, crying, like just not fun. I wouldn't wish colic on my worst enemy. But and I don't maybe it's just from doing fire season and I've heard chaos. I've been in it and my job has always been to be the calm person to keep everyone else calm around me. And I think that's helped me with parenthood in a sense of when my child's freaking out, I almost get calmer and quieter. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's from dispatch or from just who I am as a person, but it's there's a lot of similarities I find between wildland fire dispatch and being a mother.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like, you have people that you're communicating with who are relying on you for certain things, and you kind of have to realize, okay, the more frantic that I get, the more frantic they are. So if I stay calm, that might help the other person calm down as well. So I think that's very reasonable, or like it just makes sense.
Yeah, I've had dispatchers who weren't very calm on the radio and you could hear it, like you could hear the boots on the ground, like then they start getting worked up if the voice on the radio is going crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
go ahead.
mm.
I was just gonna say I've had, a couple of people that I know like out on the engines or whatnot, and they'll be like, yeah, it makes a huge difference having somebody on the radio who's calm and collected
Mm.
versus somebody who's freaking out and oh my gosh, blah blah blah. Like you can just tell even in the tone of someone's voice, and it's really cool to hear like the people on the other side of the radio be like, yeah, what you're doing actually matters, and your calm helps keep me calm.
Yeah,
I love that.
I was lucky when my first year in fire, I had an awesome trainer for initial attack for being on the radio. I remember I started June 1st, and by like June 10th, she was training me on the radio after I did some kind of logistics.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was a huge fire that started, and the phones were ringing off the hook. Things were going crazy. And I was all kind of shy and timid. I was like, oh, I'll just stand back and watch you do your thing. And she's like, no, you sit your butt down and you do it. And I fumbled my way through it, but she was so calm the whole time. Like any mistake I made, she would just casually boop, like, here, let me help you. Let me show you the right way to do it. And I think I learned from her how to try and kind of stay calm And now when I train, I try to mimic that the best I can.
Yeah. Well, so Abby looks like just commented, do you have any techniques to stay calm on the radio when you are in a stressful situation?
Yeah, I find, I mean, it sounds so painfully simple, but honestly, just breathing. And I have little stickers I actually just put on my mic that says, because our radio system takes a second to connect. So you have to kind
Okay.
of hit the button, take a breath,
Yep.
and then start talking.
Yep.
And that's helped so much to just take a quick breath before you transmit.
Yep.
The other thing that I love was I've had, trainers in the past or fire guys that are, the radio's push to talk, not push to think.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear that so many times where someone will hit the button and then just be like, stand by.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yep.
For me too, like taking walkabouts, like, yeah, every agency's got kind of the union breaks, like, but for me, it's anytime you need to, I always tell my team this, like, go outside, fresh air, just take a walkabout. You feel yourself getting worked up. And I think in my position too, as being a supervisor, it's really up to me to keep track of everyone's, like, their signs of burnout. And also knowing my signs of burnout has been huge. I've tried to take a lot of classes on how to identify when you've peaked out.
Yeah. I think that's important too, like, just I would think of it like myself working underneath somebody, like having overhead that I know can recognize that, or having that like relationship or that trust where it's like, I might be getting caught up in the moment, but if somebody else from the outside can recognize that and be like, hey, it's okay, go take 5. That I think does wonders, because at some point, like you do just get so focused on what you're doing that you might need somebody to tell you, hey, it's okay, go take care of yourself and then come back to me.
Yeah, something that was hard for me to learn was how to ask for help. I think I started in a dispatch center where it was just me and one other person. And so, on their days off, you kind of get used to just doing it all yourself. And then when I moved to like bigger centers, I brought that attitude with me in the beginning of, oh, I just have to do it all myself. And then I would burn myself out and not be effective. And so as being able to be like, I need a second, or the phone's ringing, hey, can you answer that phone while I get this channel? Or I need to go take an extra long bathroom break to not exist for a couple minutes.
You just go to the bathroom and you're like, yeah. Yeah, so I like what Abby just said. So first she said, thanks, walks are my favorite when I need to take a break. And then she said, one thing I would add is paying attention to when others are stressed and knowing when to step in and help. And I think that's so spot on.
Yeah. I mean, we're like, again, it's another cliche, but it's like we are a team. Like, we can't, I had to learn it the hard way. No one can do it by themselves. No matter how awesome of a dispatcher or whatever superhuman someone can be, they still can't do it by themselves. There will always be that point of kind of maxed out. Yeah.
I've worked with a couple individuals who take on that, like, I don't really know the right word for it, other than just people who think they need to do everything all the time and they don't want to let other people help. And it's difficult when you see somebody who's trying to juggle all these things and you're like, hey, I'm here to help, but I also don't want to step in your way and like mess up your flow. So that's always kind of awkward as well. But I think that has helped me realize, hey, I don't have to try to take on all these tasks. Let other people help. And that's so much better than one person just suffering and going crazy. There's a team, like you said, for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's like the only way to learn too. I mean, if you're not letting other people help, they're not learning how to do the position.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I remember being terrified to call in sick for a long time because in my brain, I was the only one who could do things. When in reality, if I had shown people how to do them, then, I could have a life. And that was another big kind of thing that came, I think, with motherhood was that realization of, it takes a village to raise a child and it takes a village to run a dispatch center.
Yeah. I can imagine too that whole concept of in dispatch, like letting other people help you out, having a team. I would assume at some point having a kid is kind of the same thing where you're like, okay, I need to like delegate, let them stack the dishwasher or let them sweep the floor. And if it's not exactly how I want, well, they're learning how to do it. Like I've got that in my head, like one day that will happen.
Oh, yeah. And I'm lucky I have a partner who is helpful. Like he does all the cooking because I hate cooking.
Oh no.
And he loves to cook. So that was like a total win. And
Yeah.
then like I see these mamas and dads who are single parents raising their kids and still doing their career. It's impressive.
I think either parenting or fire, those are difficult in and of themselves, but putting them together, I have so much respect for people who do that because it is like it's just incredible. That is a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's fun. I mean, maybe I would have done things a little differently in micro aspects of my career in motherhood, but at the end of the day, like I feel lucky that I've found a career that I love. I don't think a lot of people get that chance. I mean, my first career in tourism, I didn't love, but I did it because it paid the bills and
Mhm.
it was fine. And it took a lot to leave it, knowing that I was leaving that like security. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have found this career. And I will never forget my first day on the radio, and it hooked me. And like I don't want to do anything else. I mean, I don't know if I could be an initial attack dispatcher for my whole life. That is kind of exhausting, but
Right,
like,
right.
I think I feel lucky that I found a career I love and I have a pretty chill little creature who is pretty adaptable to my career as well.
Yeah. Like I heard you talking about me, Mom.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's kind of funny. I remember, you know Diane,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
She's awesome.
So I remember like my first season, um, short term, non perm, her whole demeanor, like I don't care what was happening, just always the calm, always
Mm-hmm.
like I was like, okay, your mom from now on, like always the calm, had all the answers, like knows her stuff, and I think to this day she's still the one person that I look at and I'm like, you are the like my hero role model person for dispatching just because she has that demeanor. Like she knows what she's doing and she's got it. She's like, yeah, it's gonna work out. You just do your job. Things are good. Life is good.
Yeah, I think Alaska's lucky in the sense that Alaska's had some awesome dispatchers at, like, on the state and the Fed side. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I could sit here and name basically every dispatcher I've met in Alaska who just kicks butt. And I think that was nice. Like, I feel lucky that when I started, I was kind of taught by a group across the state that just, they knew what they were doing, they enjoyed teaching, they were passionate about it, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, I think
And then
that,
oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I
You're
was gonna
good.
say,
Go
and
ahead.
then and then like going on assignments too, like you meet some awesome people. I've probably really yet to go on an assignment where it's like, oh, I would never go back there.
That's good. Yeah. There's so much to learn too from different dispatch centers. Like
Mm-hmm.
I somebody told me a while back, so like IFM, Integrated Fire Management. I don't know if Alaska is the only state that uses it, but I do remember coming down to the States and working with Wildcat and being like, okay, this is different. I mean, it's the same
Mm-hmm.
concept. You're still dispatching, but it's a different program. And then just working with different people and learning different techniques or different ways of doing things or tips and tricks for keeping track of your resources, all of those little things that you learn. I think those are probably my favorite parts about dispatching because you can just learn so many different things from so many different people in different centers, and as
Yeah.
long as you're an open slate in a sense, like taking, willing to accept new information, like that's just more more in your back pocket to help you be better as a dispatcher.
Yeah. I'm probably a little more strict on my like the task books for the dispatchers on my team in the sense that I generally tell them they're not going to get signed off until they take an assignment because you can
Yeah,
only learn so much in your home unit.
yeah.
I mean, even if you're a busy home unit, you're still only learning that procedure. And
Hmm.
anytime a dispatcher that I send somewhere, I'm like, okay, you're going to go, you're going to help them do whatever they need for help, but keep your eye out for things that might work back at our center.
Hmm.
And then I always encourage them to bring back, maybe forms they saw or processes and like, hey, let's try it. Maybe it'll work for us, maybe it won't. But yeah, I've learned probably more going out on assignments just because it's so different.
Hmm. Yeah, different areas, like I said, different people, different styles. It's
I think,
interesting to see.
yeah, I think one thing I love too is because of the task book system, like, any dispatcher you meet, they started at the same place you did. Like we all started with our EDRC task book and then worked our way to wherever we are at various levels. And so
Right.
it's kind of nice to know that.
Hmm. I will say I have come into contact with a few people. How do I say this? like you meet people and you can tell that they've worked at a very low fire capacity, or like they haven't necessarily dealt with bigger incidents. And I'm one of those that, like, having worked like seasonally or doing the AD thing, whatever, like I still have a lot to learn. So I am, disclaimer, like I am not the best of the best by any means. But I've met people who I'm like, I don't know if you've actually like dispatched for a fire, but you're signed off. And
Mm,
that's
yeah.
that's one thing that is kind of weird about the whole task book thing is, like, there's all of those individual tasks where you get your signatures, and then once you have your signatures, like, it goes through the process of getting approved, signed off, whatever. But it's kind of like there's a standard, but there's not really a standard at the same time because everybody's
Hmm.
experiences are different.
Yeah, I've definitely seen people, I've worked with people who you're like, you got a little pencil whipped on your task book. And it sucks because all that's doing is it's setting them up for failure. Because,
Mhm.
you know, maybe they don't know. Maybe that's the culture from where they came. And in their brain, they're like, I'm fully qualified. I did all my tasks. And now you're sending them on assignment to somewhere that's the complete opposite of where they're from. And they're floundering because, you know, they're thinking they're fully qualified. The receiving center is thinking they're getting a fully qualified person.
Right.
And now both places are, you know, struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or I've had dispatchers who will do something one time and they'll come up with their task book like, here, give me signatures. It's like, no, I need to see it multiple times. And I tell my team always, like, you can refuse to have your task book signed off if you don't feel you're ready. I did that with my aircraft a couple times just because aircraft is terrifying and I didn't want to be
So
fully
much.
qualified right
Yeah.
away. And I also tell them too, I was like, don't let someone sign your task book off until you feel you could train someone to do that task. Because that kind of has become the cultures, maybe because we are so shorthanded, is as soon as you're qualified, it's like, okay, now take a trainee.
Right.
Now here's a trainee for you. And it's like, let me be qualified for a minute just to get my feet under me before now having to show someone.
Right. I do. I mean, I do agree that that kind of has become a trend. Like, let's just push people through because we need people. And I have never been in the position of hiring or training for fire, so I can't sit here and say, should be done this way, should be done that way, whatever.
Mm.
But as somebody who's like out there going and doing, it's weird coming across like, okay, well, you're like really proficient at your job, but you're not qualified. But this other person is not really super proficient, but they're qualified. So it's, I don't know. It's just very interesting.
Yeah, I wish there was a little more, I don't know. No, baby. More of the process because like
Mm-hmm.
I heard the feds have like a whole like committee that they have to go through. Come here, babe. And whereas places I've worked with like state agencies, like maybe it might just be your supervisor who is signing off on it.
Mm.
And so it's a little bit of, yeah, I don't know. I think it's agency specific. You want applesauce? Go get one. No. Toddlers are like teenagers, I swear.
All right.
Hi, honey. No. You want to come say hi? No. Okay.
All right.
No. No, it's the whole trading thing is interesting, and I I like that it seems like more agencies are hiring more training officers because
Mm-hmm.
it's a huge job. The training officers like up in Alaska DNR, like they are constantly swamped. They have so much on their plate
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how they keep up with it.
I know the training officer from back on the peninsula. I mean, he constantly seemed like he was just run down. I think they either are or maybe already have a position to help like separate because I think it was like aviation and training that they compiled together and they had it for that one person. I think they're now separating it and maybe even trying to get him an assistant. Could be wrong, don't quote me. Um, but yeah, just seeing like constantly the workload that he had to take on, it was like, dude, how are you still functioning? It's a lot.
Yeah. my supervisor down here, his current position is like dispatch and training. So like he kind of does a little bit more of like the finance behind the scenes dispatch stuff.
Okay.
And they immediately realize like this is like a really rainy area I'm in. So big fires were kind of like 5 acres maybe.
Yeah.
But we had a 15,000 acre fire this last year that they've never experienced before. And they immediately realized like, oh, yeah, we might be grouping too many things together in one position. And it is nice working for an agency that kind of recognizes that and is like, all right, like you need help. We're going to do what we can to get funding to get you help.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I swear every new place I've been to, I started in Toke and then I went to Fairbanks. My first year in Fairbanks was like a crazy record-breaking year. And now my first year down here in Washington was a crazy record-breaking year. So I'm scared to move again.
You're just bringing it with you. Oh my gosh. Well, if you end up moving, let me know how your first year goes.
Oh, I'm scared. I don't know if I can handle another record-breaking year.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
It's funny how wildland fire makes you see weather differently. Like it'll be raining here for days on end and people are all bummed. I'm like, yes, just rain, all the rain.
Yeah. Oh, mine is like, oh, cool. But like, we don't have a lot of snow. That's awesome. And then it's like, well, snow would actually help, a couple months from now. Just that snowpack is kind of a good thing, but whatever. It's wild.
Yeah.
Well, just looking at my clock on my phone. So we're coming up on an hour. I don't know if there's anybody on that has any other questions pertaining to dispatch or training, anything that we can help out with. I usually like to let people ask questions if they have anything, if anybody's on.
Yeah.
But those are exciting. I haven't had anybody come on and talk about dispatch. So, like, yeah, you get to nerd out a little bit with somebody else.
I love dispatch. It's painful how much I can talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know I said I wasn't going to do like interview style questions, but I guess kind of like a summary question. If you could offer somebody advice on where to start for dispatching, like how to get involved, what to do, what would you do? Like, what would you tell them?
I would definitely say, like, to get started, like reach out to. I see you, honey. Pocket. You have a pocket, yes.
Oh, pocket. I was like, I like pancakes too.
She just discovered pockets and is really excited about them.
Pockets are cool, man.
But yeah, for getting started, it's just doing a little bit of research and finding a dispatch center near you, because they're tucked all across the nation. And then just talking to people. I mean, making sure you kind of already have that personality, that ability to do the job and the drive. And other than that, just like, keeping tabs on job postings and getting out there. I do try to tell younger, newer dispatchers to go get their 90 days of fire line experience. So that, because that is one of the things to be a Fed dispatcher, you need those 90 days. I don't have them, and I honestly probably will never see myself on the line. It's just not. Yes, it's a Christmas tree cup. If you can, if you're young enough and you're fit enough, go do a fire season on the line, so that in the long run, you can get a job wherever.
Yeah. Well, I remember a handful, a couple of years ago, whatever it was, when I had applied for Fairbanks, and you were like, "Hey, cool, we got this position. Like, you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And then the opportunity came up for being on an engine. I just kind of knew, you know, in the back of my mind, like, I'm not getting any younger, and if I have the opportunity, I might as well do it sooner than later, because if I want a position that requires that 90 days, I'd rather have it in my pocket than not.
Exactly. I remember you reaching out to me and like feeling bad, like and I'm like, oh girl, no. Like, yes, the selfish in me is like, no, please come work for me, but
yeah,
I could never be someone who held someone back in that sense. And if the opportunity is there, take it, because sometimes the opportunities don't come fast enough. I wish I had had the opportunity early in my career to go do line work, and I chose not to because I was just love dispatch, and now, no. I don't even think I could pass the back test if I tried right now.
No. just throw sick on your back and be like, I got better. Oh man. Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice. Definitely, if people think they're gonna stay in it, get that out. I hate to say get that out of the way, but go experience that and have that in your pocket. And honestly, now that I have had a season, I would tell everybody to do it, just because there's so much that I feel that I learned. And like I've said before, I mean, I barely scratched the surface of actual firefighting and the whole engine scene and all of that, but I so value that season just for all the things that I was able to see and experience.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit of that disconnect. Like, I wish, again, like, I wish I had done boots on the ground, because it would make me a better dispatcher, because I would know what those men and women are experiencing on the other end of the radio. And it kind of goes twofold. Like, I love when firefighters want to come into dispatch and hang out for a day, a week, whatever, because then it makes them better at communicating with dispatch and know what we're looking for and what they sound like on the radio.
Yeah.
And just getting that broader view of fire just makes everyone more well-rounded.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think if it's going to add to your repertoire of fire, you can't really go wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's almost nap time.
Okay. Well, I feel like we've kept Mommy long enough. We should probably let you go anyhow.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Like I said, I'm super excited to have you on for the first dispatcher. This was cool. And thank you, Sika, for being patient with Mom and coming on. This was cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And for everybody else that is watching, thank you guys all for tuning in. I will go ahead and post the recording and then put it on all the other platforms and stuff. So whoever wants to watch it, you're more than welcome. And we'll catch you guys next time. All right.
Bye.
Have a good one.